All right, y'all. Now we need to talk, okay? Because let me tell you something. Let me tell you something right here. If what I witnessed today in court is the way that the rest of this trial is going to go for Puff, he not going to see that maximum jail time they talking about. His lawyers, don't play with them at all. Like, this was the first day of opening statements and the first time we heard any witness testimony, right? I honestly, for one, didn't think we were going to get to any witness testimonies because I thought the opening statements were going to be so long. The prosecutors, they came out swinging. I'm not even going to hold y'all. So court started around like 9:35 a.m. I was in the overflow room for the first half, and then I actually made it into the real courtroom. Diddy was dressed in all gray with a white button up. He actually did get his hair cut a little bit. His facial hair was trimmed up a little bit. So the prosecutors opened this thing up with their opening statements, and in their opening statements, and the prosecutors, for those of you guys who do not know, are the people that think Diddy belongs in jail. The government opening statements actually begin with, he's a cultural icon. He's Diddy. He's larger than life. But there was another side of him. That was the opening line of the prosecutor's statements. So from there, you already know where they're going with it. Started with Cassie, but they didn't start with the video. Prosecutors talked about a night where Cassie, basically had found out that Puff was dealing with another woman. And she was like, I'm out of here. And she went to go be with another man. That man, Alex Fon, who is her now husband, who I actually saw in court today. So I thought at one point Cassie was going to testify today, but it didn't happen. But they talk about how Diddy, when he found out this, got his gun, went and got, a couple people that work with him and went to go find Cassie. Like, he was on like this rage, allegedly. Like, the prosecutors was like, if y'all think y'all know, we about to tell y'all something new right here, right now. Prosecutors used their opening statement time to introduce a lot of new information. The defendants, Diddy side, didn't do that. So prosecutors let us know, number one, that there is a woman named Mia, right? And this woman named Mia is a woman who used to work for Puff. She was his one of his personal assistants, and the prosecutors say that Mia will testify in alleging that she was sexually assaulted by Diddy. And that she basically, all of these years, was scared to come out because of the power and the influence of Puff. They told us that, Cassie is going to testify and allege that Puff made a male escort pee in her mouth. That is what they alleged in their opening statements. There was an escort that got on the stand as a witness. During this testimony, this escort talked about being made to pee in Cassie's mouth. But this witness says that it was Cassie who asked him to do that. Now, and that Cassie CNN video, now this was tea. And this is why I'm saying Puff's attorneys ain't nothing to be fooled with, okay? Because let me tell y'all, so the CNN video from 2016, this video, I think people keep bringing into question. And for me, I knew that even though they were saying like they were trying to figure out how they were going to use it in the beginning of all this, right? We had that conversation. I knew that they were going to have to be very strategic about how they use it. They as the prosecutors, because he's not being charged with domestic violence. So the prosecutors brought that in by bringing a witness. The witness was a man who was a security guard at the Intercontinental. The security guard, when he's being questioned by the prosecutors, they established like, oh, he was a former LAPD officer, or he's an LAPD officer now. He was a former head of security. And they're doing all of this because, when you're head of security working at a high level place like the Intercontinental, there are certain things that you got to abide by very strictly. Now that you're an LAPD officer, you take an oath to protect and serve. They're trying to establish his integrity. Now, this security guard from the Intercontinental, right? He was like an assistant director or something like that. Like, so he was like leadership. He wasn't the boss, but he was leadership, right? So he still reported to somebody, but he was leadership, right? So this man, they do a lot of questioning. He goes down recounting what he remembers from the video. He alleges when he's talking to prosecutors that, when he was called upstairs, he hadn't viewed the video first, so he didn't know that they were actually physically fighting. But when he got up there, Cassie had a purple eye. He says that, he had told them that they had to go back in the room just because he didn't see it himself. Cassie was saying that she wanted to leave, and Puff was saying that she couldn't leave, allegedly. And he was like, no, she's going to leave if she wants to leave, right? He also alleged that when he walked them back to their room that they were staying in, that he saw another man in the room sitting on the bed. Now that's important because remember, Cassie is alleging that that video was her trying to get away from one of the freak offs. The defense is alleging, no, there was no freak off happening. Y'all got into it over a phone, and this was a toxic response from both sides that we saw on that video. So the man is like, okay, Cassie's trying to get out of there. She wants to go. I'm trying to help her get out of there. Boom. That's how he's talking to prosecutors. Baby, Brian still got up there talking on Puff's behalf. First thing he said was, he said, okay, so you're alleging that, you were second to the head of security at the time, right? You worked for a company named Securitas. He's like, yeah. So Brian Steele's like, okay, well, would you say that your incident reports are basically like Bible? Like y'all live by that. You put everything there. It has to be honest, has to be clear, has to be very information. In the beginning of his testimony, he said they stick to the W's, the who, what, when, where, why, to give all the information. Because these incident reports can be used if someone tries to sue the hotel, if they need to take further action against someone staying in the hotel, and to just let, let the rest of the team know what's going on, right? So he's like, yep, 100%. What you're saying is correct, Mr. Steele. This is the witness. So Brian Steele was like, okay, well, I got a few questions for you then. You allege that Cassie had a purple eye. Why wasn't that in your incident report? You allege that you were trying to, help her leave because Puff didn't want her to leave. Why wasn't that in your incident report? There were so many different things that they caught him up on, yo. I was sitting there like, oh. And then, right, he had alleged when the prosecutors that Cassie was trying to leave. When Brian Steele came on the stand, Brian Steele was like, oh, but wait, because you had said that Puff was telling you that he wanted her to leave. So what are we going by here? Now, I'm not going to lie. Prosecutors did their big one. They came back. They didn't really say too much in response to that. Instead, they replayed the video again of Diddy dragging Cassie back to the room. Basically, ain't no way you wanted her to leave and you dragging her back to the room, right? And they mic dropped after that. But the way Brian Steele caught this man up on a cross-examination. Now, let me just say, too, the prosecutors themselves, they put all their stuff out in the front. So the man from the hotel, there was the original video, and then he recorded the video to then show to his wife. And they asked him, well, why would you record the video to then show to your wife? And he was like, because basically after the events that I saw, I knew that if I just said it, nobody would believe me. So he knows, he said he didn't know who Cassie was, but he knew who Puff was, right? So he knows that this is a big deal because of who's involved. So Brian Steele is then making the point that yo, so you're sitting here telling me that you remember all these details. You remember a purple eye that you're testifying to, all these things on the stand from 9 years ago. But in your incident report at the time of the event, which you knew was a big deal because you had people talking to you about he said his employees were coming into work asking to see the video. So you had people at your job talking to you about it. You recorded it to make sure you could show your wife because you didn't think she was going to believe you. But you didn't detail everything in your incident report that you're now on this stand claiming. I said, oh, that witness is done. He's no longer looking valid no more. And this is the same man that, was saying, hey, Puff offered me all this money, allegedly, to get rid of the video. And that's what he said to prosecutors. Brian Steele got on the stand and said, wait, you told us that from the minute you stepped off the elevator, when all this was happening, you kept reminding Diddy he's going to have to pay for all of this, everything that they messed up. So then you tell me that the minute you step in his room, he offers you money, and you instantly assume that it was to cover up a video? Because from what I'm hearing, he offered you money because you told him that he had to pay for a bunch of stuff. Yo, I'm trying to tell y'all right now, Diddy's legal team is not coming to play. The prosecutors, their witness testimony has to get stronger. Because today, even with the male escort, It was like they had a good setup and they was doing so well. And then Diddy's attorneys would come in and then boom. Now they looking a little all over the place. Or fanned out, to be honest with you. Like, the male escort said at one point, he didn't even care if he wasn't being paid at certain points because he was just so excited to be a part of Diddy and Cassie's lifestyle. He didn't know who Cassie was, but she was gorgeous. He didn't find out until later. But of course he knew who Diddy was. Even though he says his first couple times meeting Diddy would cover his face allegedly with a bandana and wear a baseball cap. But he was like, he knew when he heard his voice who he was, but he had never saw his face until Puff got comfortable allegedly, right? But that whole thing with the urination blew up the prosecutor's case because the prosecutors led their opening statement like, yo, Cassie's gonna get on the stand herself and tell y'all, this man took it as far as to make another man pee in her mouth. Then you get an escort on the stand who says, no, Cassie asked me to do that, allegedly. We're going to pick back up tomorrow with the escort. They ran out of time today in court with the escort. But man, listen. They like, look, Puff is everything. The prosecutors, the defense is like, look, he everything y'all think. He, abused drugs at one point. He don't know how to control his anger. He was an abuser of women domestically. But he's not a sex trafficker. He ain't an arsonist. Everything that he's in court for today, nah, we not standing on that. I now understand why Puff did not take that plea deal. Not even gonna lie. It's gonna take some major and I'm not saying this to say that I know he's guilty or not. I'm telling y'all the sparring that I watched in court today, that man's legal team is gonna be, if the rest of court goes anything like today, that man's legal team will be the reason why he does not serve that full sentence. They did not come to play. Did not.